You know who's not doing good?
The world?
Yes, the world. Hello everyone and welcome back to another Tank Talk with your boys, Keith.
And Brandon.
How you doing this week, Brandon? Doing good?
I'm doing good.
Well, you know who's not doing good? I'm going to go ahead and finish. You know who's not doing good?
The world?
Yes, the world. The world is not doing good. There's a lot of hate. There's a lot of foolishness going on out there.
Casey Kane doesn't have a ride next year.
And Casey Kane doesn't have a ride
Kyrie's out of Cleveland?
It just gets worse and worse. We, instead of making a video about the things going on in Charlottesville and other riots and dangers and foolish and hatred being spread, we're just going to try to counteract a little bit of the hate and sadness in the world and violence with some uplifting news stories from this past week, I believe.
Yes.
So, Brandon, why don't you lay it on me? What you got for us this week? What's going to lift our spirits out of the mire?
Well, my story is going to excite you, then remind you of another sad event, and then bring you back.
Good.
Which I think yours will too.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't think about it. There's a lot of sadness.
Before it gets better, before the sun rises, it's going to be a little darker.
Yeah. It's all. Why can't you just? The phrase would be it's always darkest before the dawn or something.
I never really understood that.
Yeah.
Because the sun's coming up before the dawn.
It's not. I don't think it's real. I don't think scientifically.
You don't
it's
think the sunrise is real?
No, I'm saying I don't think scientifically that it's always darkest before the dawn.
So I would think it'd be darkest like 3 a.m. Do you know in a lot of books though, like right before the sun rises, that's when all the evil happens. I learned that in a literature course.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. So it's the witching hour. That's where that comes from.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you.
Does that have anything to do with what you're about to say?
No.
You haven't learned anything from me. You got to be able to turn it into that.
But speaking of the witching hour, Curious George.
Perfect.
There is a documentary coming out soon about Margaret and H.A. Ray.
Ooh.
They are the creators. They are the creators of Curious George, and they escaped the Nazis in 1940 on homemade bicycles.
How not fortuitous. It's a word that. How appropriate is the word I'm looking for? How appropriate.
They met. They got married, and they ended up moving to Paris. They were originally from Germany, but they had escaped Hitler and all his buddies.
Yep.
And they went to Brazil, and then they went back to Paris.
All right.
And then Hitler's troops started marching towards Paris, and so they couldn't get on any of the planes or trains
or automobiles.
And they didn't own a vehicle, and so he did what any hero of a story would do.
That's right.
Make a homemade bicycle. He just got some spare parts, and they made a bicycle, and they grabbed the stories they'd already written. I think it was like 18 maybe they had written.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought that was just like they would have come like after escaping. They had already written Curious George.
So they had written it, and they grabbed it. I also think George was Fifi at first, then they changed it to George.
Is it possible that's why Hitler invaded Paris? He was looking for Curious George?
I feel like that's a Curious George movie waiting to happen.
Curious Fifi?
But on the way, like while they were escaping, they would stop at restaurants and sleep in barns and all. And to prove that they were not dangerous, they would show people these stories. And so people would read through the stories, and people would be like, "Oh, this Curious Fifi." And so,
is it John Wayne Gacy who was the clown serial killer?
It might have been.
Well, that logic doesn't exactly. Is that incorrect? Okay, sorry. We're getting a comment from our studio audience, but I just feel like the logic that I'm not scary. Hear my stories. I feel like John Wayne Gacy was a serial killer.
This is before clowns were invented.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but he could use the argument like, "Oh no, I'm not going to kill you and eat you. I'm a clown."
And so they ended up. I believe they went to England after that. But in any case, they ended up showing up, or they didn't just show up. They ended up coming to New York, and they published their books. And as of the article being written, which was written yesterday, they had sold 75 million copies of Curious George.
That is amazing. Good for them. that is a positive news story.
Mhm.
Out of all that hatred and death that was going on, there was a curious tailless monkey born, and now he has affected all of our lives. He and his yellow-headed man.
What do you have on your list, Keith?
I think part of our show is going to be me having different methods of having notes. I started with Post-its, and I've moved to this. Eventually, I'll get a notebook or a laptop or something.
Dry erase board.
But I'll say this, much like yours, it's not something that happened this week. It's just something that someone posted in the news this week. But mine has to do with puppies and doggies. So there's this dog. I don't know where he is because I don't remember. I didn't write it down. But there's a dog somewhere named Patriot. And he is a little husky boy. And I'm going to put a picture of his puppy self on the screen here. And what Patriot does is he helps, because he was abused as a puppy dog. He apparently, I guess his owner like tied metal like barbed wire around his snout or whatever and to hold it shut, and he had really bad scars, and he was adopted at 4 months old, and his owner had to get a lot of surgeries and stuff to where he could even open his mouth, and eventually after like he would like coat his hand in peanut butter and like just get the dog Patriot to lick it, and then eventually he got to where like he was okay to be petted and he could deal with his abuse, and then eventually he could wear a collar, and now he's good to go. And so what he does is he works with the with an organization called PANDA, which stands for Pause Assist the Needs of. It's not against the district attorney. Pause Assist the Needs of the district attorney. So he works with the district attorney, and he helps kids who have been abused get the courage to testify against their abusers. So there's a story in the article about like this little girl who had been abused, and she was telling her story to, I guess, the police or whoever, to her lawyer or whatever, and she like started to cry and she couldn't handle it anymore, so they brought the dog in, and like he went over there and like nudged her, and just the dog's presence being there gave her the comfort to continue telling her story. And so now, since he was abused and he knows what abuse is like, he can help little boys and girls get through abuse, and that's just nice.
When you first told me about that story, I thought that the dog was an attorney. I just pictured like some guy being like, "I don't know about it." The dog just slamming me like lies.
Does the defense have any questions? Oh, woof. No. Also, it's just honestly there's abuse in two halves of this news story, and the one that bothers me more. I mean, it doesn't really bother me more, but the one that would probably be more quick, I guess, it's just more shocking to me, is animal abuse. Like I've said before in private, and now I'll say publicly, that when it comes to abusing like another human being, it's not that I understand it, but I understand abusing an animal less.
Yeah.
Because an animal's, they're completely innocent. Like if you abuse a puppy, there's something probably even worse wrong with you than if you abuse a human. Because you can if a person.
Well, I think you're also comparing it to being like a child. You're not saying like a puppy and like a 2-day-old baby.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, there's never any justification for abuse of anything, but it's just I think I find animal abuse more shocking just because they're completely innocent and they don't have the cognitive ability to do anything wrong, you know?
Well, there was an article that came out when I Am Legend came out, the Will Smith movie, and it talked about how people were so upset when his dog died. Spoiler alert.
That movie. That
versus when you found out that like all of humanity had died, and like you're crying when the dog's dead, but you're not thinking about, think about all these people in Minnesota died.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like how you said it. We kind of think, oh well, maybe someone deserved that, whereas you think, oh, an animal didn't mean like an animal's innocent, whereas like someone might have, because when you hear these things, a lot of times you hear of like, oh, the child was like, you know, it's never an excuse, but you hear the excuses of, oh, like the child was annoying me or whatever, and then you think, oh well, maybe you should have handled it like an adult and not
abuse them.
Yeah, you know, not.
And again, I think I have a bad habit of starting these kind of conversations and not being able to clarify what I mean. My point is, all abuse is bad.
Well, you should state your case, then state where you land, instead of just starting it with, I can understand hurting a child,
That's not what
but a dog.
I didn't even say that. What I'm trying to say is all abuse is bad. It is worse to abuse a child than it is to abuse a dog. But I just find it more shocking that there are people capable of abusing cute little animals.
Well, to wrap this up, my one final thing,
Please.
is I think that in both of these stories, it's shown that even in the midst of bad, good can still come from it.
Yeah.
'Cause it gives you an opportunity to either help people, like afterwards, it gives you the opportunity to walk up to people and say, "Oh, I've been in your shoes. I can help you with that one." Or in this one, you can still have, like you can have heroes or whatever in the midst of it. It's all about how you handle the situation. Like I know it's a cliche, but it's all about how you. It's not like what happens; it's how it affects you.
Yeah.
So I think that's important. Like in these ones, and even like whenever you have stuff that's happened, like this past weekend, or other stuff you just see on the news. Because whenever something bad happens, you see that for like 2 weeks straight until the next bad thing happens. But it's just important to realize, like, oh well, nope, there's still good, or like happiness out there, or like there can be light in the midst of this.
Also, our country as well seems to be wrought with a lot of small rifts in between it. But not to say that there aren't other small things that we ought to unite against as good versus evil or whatever. But whenever you have something that is truly and objectively evil, like we saw in Virginia, or this weekend, it helps the rest of the country kind of unify and forget about maybe the smaller differences and unify against this one maybe evil thing. So we'll leave you with that kind of stuff. So hopefully you learned something. Be sure to drop by and pay your respects to Curious George, and say hello to Patriot if you're nearby, and come back for another Tank Talk next week. Do you have a fun fact or anything for us?
No,
we decided
that was my final thing.
Fun fact is that last D-Day, yesterday was Brandon's 25th birthday. He is a quarter of a century old, and he deserves all your loves and kisses. So make sure you comment hugs and kisses.
Mm-hmm.
It really was.